As some of y'all may know, not so subtle wink, I'm a mangaka, and a while ago I had this extremely strong urge to make a manga, but I wanted to get something out really quickly without necessarily spending too much time thinking about it. Particularly because a lot of us, including me, fall into the trap of spending way too much time thinking about making something rather than actually doing it. So essentially, I wanted an excuse to profusely and viscerally vomit out all my creativity. Some say I have a way with words. Anyway, to further prevent myself from spending way too much time on this, I figured I'd add a time limit for this manga to be completed in 24 hours. A secondary reason for this time limit is because I know how much you sick fucks like subjecting YouTubers to agony and misery. Alrighty, since this challenge is a time limit, I needed to adequately plan out how I would distribute my time. I figured I'd dedicate about 2 hours on planning/research, then I had to figure out the page count for this manga, since it has to fit within the time frame. I initially settled on 10 pages because it's pretty short and 10's my favorite number. Spectacular decision making skills, I know. I then decided to designate like 5 hours to storyboarding and the last 17 hours to inking. Assuming you're not like me and can count, you're probably thinking, all that time adds up to 24 hours. Where are the slots for sleep, no Eddie?
Do you have any relationship with your
sleep?
What's that?
Sleep. See, if you asked me back when my brain cell count was declining and I was an immature, underdeveloped pleb a year ago, I would have said I'm pulling an all-nighter and I would have subjected myself to unnecessary torture. But now I've matured a little bit, just a teensy, like an actual, like minuscule, and I actually prioritize my physical health. So I'm gonna sleep, said no mangaka ever. I'm not gonna voluntarily be a cog in the inhumane system mangas that put 3 if I have the choice. Alright, enough yapping, here's how the challenge went. Planning and research. This phase went relatively well. I had kind of been thinking about the story throughout the week whenever I zoned out in my day-to-day, so I didn't really need to start everything from scratch. I settled on drawing a martial arts manga because I wanted to practice as much action as possible, and it doesn't necessarily have to have the most intricate narrative to be compelling, because it's just unga bunga, punch punch, dopamine. Since I now had a rough idea of the story, I had to draw some character designs. Because to flesh out a story, I need to have a vivid idea of how the characters look so I can insert them into scenarios running through my head. Kind of like a 5-year-old playing with Legos. I feel like mentally I'm still like a 5-year-old, if you know what I mean. For the first character design, I recycled an old OC I made last year since he's already a martial artist and kind of fit the image I had for this manga. For the second protagonist, I want to draw Muscle Mom. A strong, capable woman that's meant to be a challenge to the main character. I'm not going to reveal the story to y'all for build up and pacing the video.
engagement?
Nemu! Not the Bleach character. If you aren't quite familiar with this term, the Nemu process is essentially just storyboards, i.e. rough drawings of your manga, to visually convey the story and to plan out the panel layout. Generally, I consider it to be the most important part of the whole manga making process and try to give myself as much time as possible to work on it and brainstorm ideas until I get the perfect ideas down. Alright, time to get to work on the Nemu. But we both not don't got time for that because of this damn time limit. So I essentially speedrun the Nemu phase, which is good considering the nature of this challenge, but there's actually a major problem that I encountered post the Nemu phase, which we'll get to later. Oh, that mysterious floating dark box, ignore it. It definitely has no future relevance and isn't a signal for some dangerous event coming in the future. As for the Nemu, I made the narrative extremely simple as I mentioned before, and made the manga primarily combat focused, because I figured, since I had no time to create a complex narrative, I could still make the manga engaging through fight scenes. That makes sense, right? Right? Like I'm actually making, I'm like, you guys understand, like I don't even know, to be honest, man.
No Eddie's manga making marathon! Woo! My baby's not Eddie!
Hi there, you're probably wondering how I go about storyboarding. Well, first I usually like to compile a bunch of references onto a Pinterest board to establish the overall aesthetic of the manga and a bunch of poses for later use. Once the board is completed, I expand upon the ideas I have in my brain by filling them with the references I compiled and putting them down onto paper or tablet in this case, and forming the format of the story. And that was Noedi's manga making marathon. Same time next week. God, I hate that show. Inking, my favorite. In case you couldn't tell, I like inking a lot. It's my favorite part of the whole manga making process because I finally get to see the pages come together and get the validation of seeing an almost complete result. Line work is also overall just really fun to do because of all the elements relating to it, like line variation and hatching. Also how these different types of line work and the different effects or feelings they can evoke, like how messier line work can give off a rough or aggressive effect, like in Doro Hedoro or JJK, or how cleaner and more refined line work can have a stronger sense of readability or fluidity, like in Naruto or Insomniacs After School or Noragami or Death Note. I decided to go for a more rough and unrefined inking style than my usual one for this manga, due to the obvious time constraint, but the messier line work kind of matches the rough and aggressive aesthetic of this manga, and I would love to say this was an intentional decision I made it, but I low-key made that reason up while scripting. The inking the inking phase was probably the most straightforward and fun. I kind of just let loose because there wasn't as much pressure to make every line perfect. Due to the time constraint, I had to be more conscious of my lines, and I couldn't spend nearly as much time control-Zing, which increased my inking speed and improved my line confidence so much, bro. I also realized that when I'm inking normally, I irrationally undo and redraw so many lines just because they aren't quote-unquote perfect. I mean, traditionally when mangas are inking on analog, they can't really undo every single line, and becoming more aware of this made me realize that it's such a waste of time worrying about making each and every line perfect, and it's more about the overall form and cohesion of the page. The fight scenes were sick to draw, but that about does it for the inking phase. Also, I made it a rule not to use screen tones, except on this fucking page. I'm a liar apparently, just so I wouldn't waste time. So the manga only consists of hatching and blacks for the shadows. But no, Eddie, what about the time limit? Oh yeah, shit, I forgot to talk about the whole point of this video. Silly me. Wait, is it just me or is that mysterious dark box from earlier that had no relevance getting close? Wait! Yeah, so I planned the timer on me having to ink 10 pages in 17 hours, but I kinda went a little overboard. This dumbass went 9 pages over the quota! A little, bro. You almost went double the page count. I know, guys. It's just 19 pages in 17 hours. Do you realize the repercussions of your lack of self-control, nigga? Anyway, so an average manga page takes me between 2 to 3 hours. So generally, if we say it would take me 2.5 hours to ink a page, 19 pages would take me 47.5 hours. And I had 17. Can you tell I hate myself? Surprisingly enough though, despite the daunting time limit, I locked in, set aside external distractions, took a shower, cringe I know, and went on a drawing spree. And I actually finished the manga in time. But guess what? The art was not up to my usual standard, it was dog shit. Now I want you to guess how I felt after completing this manga. A. Amazing and fulfilled because I succeeded. B. Depressed because the art was not satisfactory. C. Nothing, and all I felt was apathy and disillusionment. And if you guys see, I'm 17 and I'm a Gen Z and all, but I'm not that edgy. Damn, I thought you know me better through this parasocial relationship. Tisk tisk. You know, I had a lot of mixed emotions in relation to this manga, but as of scripting this video, I actually finished it like almost a month ago, so I've organized my thoughts, and I can say with confidence that I love Kaizen. Oh yeah, that's the name of the manga, by the way. I was initially really embarrassed about the manga because of the weak narrative and unpolished art, but I was completely missing the whole point of this video, and I fucking made it. I created an entire manga in 24 hours. Of course it's not going to be a masterpiece. I would just be undervaluing the amount of energy required for the manga art form if I thought I could just knock out a 19-page masterpiece in 24 hours, especially considering how little experience I have in the grand scheme of things. The whole point of this challenge is to force myself to actually make something, rather than perpetually sit on ideas. The point was just to creatively let loose and not worry about perfection. The point of this video was to have fun. And I can say with confidence that I did indeed have fun. Here's a little bit of a post-manga release commentary. I'm kind of giving a little bit of an analysis of what I think the characters represent, even though I wasn't really thinking of these themes when making the characters. I just thought it'd be kind of fun to introspect and see a little bit of the subconscious subtext or messaging I put in this manga. Alright, first protagonist, Tatsu. I think Tatsu just represents my primal and obsessive urge to want to improve and succeed at this whole manga and YouTube thing, which can be a little bit detrimental as you can ignore a lot of the people closest to you if you don't have the correct balance or become a little bit too obsessed. But on the flip side, I think he also just represents the idea of having fun and not worrying about anything else and just being true to yourself. Alrighty, onto Ichiban, the secondary protagonist. I think Ichiban represents the perspective of being at the top that I kind of have, of, I guess, a fear of loneliness despite being at this level of success and almost going into complacency because you no longer have any challenges. Yeah, just all typical themes of being number one associated with isolation and complacency when you've reached the peak of something. I've obviously never really experienced this yet. I hope to be mega successful one day, but I think it's an interesting perspective to think about because we're always like thinking about the struggles and trials and tribulations of being at the bottom because that's where most of us are. But it's kind of interesting to empathize with those at the top, in my opinion. She's basically Gojo, bro, I swear. I mean, I literally named her after our title, Ichiban being the number one. Her entire character and personality is associated with being the best. So beneath that, she has nothing. Henceforth, the existentialism, because now that she's the Ichiban, number one, what else is there to her existence? Anyway, let me know if any of the subtext resonates with you in some sense. I know Tatsu resonates with me. I'm not an Ichiban at anything yet, but I hope these characters have some sort of resonance with you after you read the manga with the context that I've given you now, considering it's relatively simplistic at face value. Holy shit, why do I actually like my manga, bro? You can read it on Manga Plus Creators, link in the description. Hopefully this video inspires you too to bring your ideas to life and reinvigorates the excitement you have for creativity. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully you'll stick around on my journey to becoming a successful mangaka. Follow my Instagram and Twitter. I post cool art on there, make updates, and post really funny stories. Funniest stories on the platform, some say. With that being said, good night.